Source March 19th, 2024, 2:13 a.m. The stench of stale beer and regret clung heavily to the air, a familiar greeting in the bowels of the bellowing bull. The bar, notorious for its clientele as much as its questionable hygiene, was my usual haunt this side of midnight. Here, the flickering neon sign outside cast the only light on the mismatched faces gathered around the chipped wooden bar. Tonight, however, something felt different. An unsettling hush had fallen over the room, broken only by the rhythmic dripping of condensation from a broken tap. I sat alone, nursing a lukewarm beer, a cold sweat prickling my skin. Earlier that evening, I'd stumbled upon something I shouldn't have, a hidden message scrawled across a greasy paper napkin tucked inside a dusty library book. It wasn't a language I recognized, but the symbols pulsed with an unsettling energy, a malevolent curiosity that burrowed into my mind. My phone buzzed on the bar, jolting me from my brooding. It was Sarah, my best friend, laced with her usual frantic energy. "Where are you?" the text demanded, followed by a string of frantic emojis. I typed back, "The bull, usual spot," before taking a swig of the bitter beer. Another message pinged in, "Don't stay there. Get to the park now." Panic clawed at my throat. Sarah never spoke in such stark terms. Before I could respond, the lights flickered and died, plunging the bar into an inky blackness. A collective groan rose from the patrons, followed by the clatter of overturned chairs and muttered curses. "Bloody generator," someone grumbled. But the air crackled with a different kind of tension now. Then, a single guttural scream ripped through the darkness. The scream wasn't human. It was a primal shriek, laced with a chilling intelligence. In that moment, a primal instinct kicked in. I scrambled off the bar stool, heart hammering against my ribs. The other patrons were in a frenzy, bumping and shoving towards the exit. I weaved through the chaos, adrenaline pumping through my veins. Emerging onto the street, I was met with a scene straight out of a nightmare. The once vibrant neon glow of the city was replaced by an unnatural crimson light that bathed everything in an ominous hue. The air thrummed with an unseen energy, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. Above, the moon was gone, replaced by a swirling vortex of inky blackness that pulsed with an unholy light. Panic surged through the crowd, morphing into a desperate stampede. People were screaming, shoving each other in a blind rush towards, well, no one seemed to know. People stumbled blindly, tripping over bodies already lying on the sidewalk. I spotted a group of college kids huddled together, faces pale with terror. "What's happening?" I yelled over the cacophony. "They're here," one of them stammered, pointing towards the distant corner of the intersection. My stomach lurched. I followed his outstretched finger and a wave of nausea washed over me. In the distance, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. It wasn't human. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that stretched impossibly long. Its form flickered in and out of existence, like a bad reception on a late-night horror movie. The creature let out another unearthly shriek, a sound that seemed to bypass the ears and resonate straight into your soul. A woman nearby screamed and collapsed, clutching her head. Fear, primal and cold, gripped me. I knew I couldn't stay here. Suddenly, Sarah's frantic warning echoed in my head. "Get to the park!" Without another thought, I bolted. I weaved through the panicked crowd, ignoring the shouts and curses hurled my way. The inhuman screech of the creature echoed behind me, spurring me on. I could hear the pounding of heavy footsteps getting closer, and a guttural growl that sent shivers down my spine. My lungs burned with exertion, but I didn't dare stop. I could only hope the park offered some sanctuary, some shred of hope in this unfolding nightmare. Up ahead, I saw the familiar archway that marked the entrance to City Park. Hope flared in my chest as I sprinted towards it. Reaching the entrance, I didn't hesitate. I pushed through the iron gate and slammed it shut behind me. Panting heavily, I leaned against the cold metal, my back pressed to the intricate scrollwork. Looking back, I saw the creature pause at the entrance. It raised a long skeletal arm, its claw-like fingers reaching towards the creature's claws scraped against the iron gate, sending a jolt of terror through me. It let out another blood-curdling shriek, the sound resonating through the park, shaking the very leaves on the trees. But the gate held. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I surveyed my surroundings. The park, usually a haven of peace and tranquility, was eerily silent. The unnatural crimson light cast long, grotesque shadows from the trees, and the air crackled with a strange energy. Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind a towering oak tree. It was Sarah, her face pale and streaked with tears. Relief washed over me, momentarily erasing the terror that gripped me. "Sarah," I cried, rushing towards her. "Thank God you're okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I saw everything from the apartment building across the street. What are those things?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice shaky, "but they're definitely not from around here." We huddled together beneath the oak, the thick trunk offering a flimsy sense of security. The silence stretched on, broken only by the distant screech of the creature and the frantic pounding of our hearts. "What did you mean by get to the park?" I asked, remembering her cryptic text. "There's a legend," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A legend about this park, about a hidden passage that leads, well, somewhere else." My heart hammered in my chest. "Somewhere else? Like where?" Sarah shook her head. "The legend doesn't say. It just talks about a time when the city would be in danger, and a group of chosen ones would use the passage to escape." "Chosen ones?" I scoffed. "That sounds like something out of a fairy tale." "Maybe," Sarah said, her eyes gleaming with a strange determination. "But right now it's our only hope." We spent the next few hours huddled beneath the oak, the park a constant battleground of unsettling sounds. The creature's guttural growls, the distant screams of people being taken, the unsettling rustling of unseen things in the bushes. As dawn approached, the crimson light began to fade, replaced by a sickly, pale green glow. The change was unsettling, but it offered a glimmer of hope. Perhaps with daylight, the creatures would retreat. But our hope was short-lived. As the first rays of the sickly green sun peeked through the trees, the creature at the gate let out a deafening roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the park. This time, however, it wasn't alone. Dozens of shadowy figures materialized around the perimeter of the park, their forms flickering in and out of existence. They were smaller than the first creature, but their glowing red eyes and gnashing teeth were no less terrifying. "We have to find this passage," Sarah said, her voice tight with fear. "It's our only chance." We didn't have a plan, no idea where to even begin looking, but with the creatures closing in, we didn't have a choice. We sprinted through the park, dodging gnarled branches and fallen logs, the creature's guttural growls echoing behind us. We found a weathered stone map tucked away in a hidden alcove behind a crumbling statue. The map was cryptic, etched with symbols we didn't recognize, but a single line glowed with an otherworldly light, leading towards a cluster of ancient oak trees on the far side of the park. Hope flared in my chest. This had to be it. We pushed through the undergrowth, adrenaline pumping through our veins. The air grew thick and humid, the stench of decay hanging heavy in the air. Finally, we reached the cluster of ancient oaks. Their gnarled branches intertwined overhead, forming a dark, cavernous space beneath them. In the center, a single colossal root protruded from the earth, its surface etched with the same symbols as the map. "This must be it," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. With trembling hands, we traced the symbols on the root, a surge of energy coursing through our bodies as we did. The earth beneath our feet trembled, and a low rumble echoed through the park. A section of the root wall crumbled away, revealing a dark, gaping hole. The air emanating from the hole was thick and stagnant, carrying with it the faint whisper of forgotten things. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, staring into the abyss. Sarah didn't answer. She simply grabbed my hand, and together, we stepped into the unknown. The descent was a chilling ordeal. The passage was narrow and choked with clinging cobwebs, forcing us to crawl on hands and knees. The air grew colder with each passing minute, a bone-chilling dampness clinging to our clothes. The only sound was the rasping of our breaths and the occasional drip of water from unseen crevices. Hours blurred into an eternity. Fatigue gnawed at us, and fear gnawed deeper. Just when I was on the verge of collapsing, the passage opened into a vast cavern. The sight that greeted us took my breath away. The cavern was a breathtaking natural cathedral, its high ceiling studded with glowing crystals that bathed the space in an ethereal blue light. In the center stood a colossal tree, its branches reaching toward the ceiling like skeletal fingers. But this was no ordinary tree. Its bark glowed with an otherworldly light, and pulsating symbols throbbed across its surface, the same symbols we had encountered on the map and the route entrance. A figure sat beneath the tree, shrouded in shadow. As we approached, the figure emerged, tall and slender, with flowing white robes and eyes that shimmered with an ancient light. "You are the chosen ones," the figure spoke, its voice a melodious whisper that resonated in our very bones. Relief washed over me, momentarily erasing the terror of the last few hours. "Have you seen what's happening outside?" I asked, urgency lacing my voice. "Those creatures, they are harbingers of chaos," the figure said. "They have been unleashed to consume this world." My heart sank. So this wasn't a safe haven, but a prison. "Do not despair," the figure continued, sensing our despair. "This place can offer protection, but only for a time. You carry within you the potential to fight back." The figure held out a hand, and a blinding light engulfed us. When it dissipated, we stood not in the cavern, but back in the park, beneath the ancient oak trees. The sickly green sun cast an eerie glow over the scene. The creatures were gone. Panic threatened to consume me again, but the figure's words echoed in my mind. We had the potential to fight. How, I didn't know, but hope, a fragile ember, flickered within me. Sarah looked at me, her eyes gleaming with a newfound determination. "We have a job to do," she said. Together we set about unraveling the secrets of the symbols, hoping to unlock the power hidden within them. We knew it wouldn't be easy. We had an entire city to save, and the fate of the world, it seemed, rested on our shoulders. But as Sarah and I stood there beneath the familiar oak trees, a strange sense of calm settled over me. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.